How many of you have taken your DNA? A lot of people. Awesome. So, I migrated to this area 5 years ago, my husband and I joined the AAGG genealogy group. So I decided to take my DNA in 2017. And being retired from the city of Austin for about 30 years, when I got up here, I didn't have much to do, so I joined AAGG, and my DNA came back, and I found out that I was related to people in San Juan, Texas. And I was there 30 years and never knew this. So, long story short, you know, when you go on Ancestry, you can talk to people and ask them, you know, how are we connected? And there was a cousin named Perez, and Perez sent me all the family trees and the connections, and basically said how we were connected. So this past December, well, Thanksgiving, my husband and I always go to Austin for Thanksgiving to see the children, blah, blah, blah. So all of a sudden I said, we going to Texas, I'm going back, I'm going to go to San Juan. I didn't talk to Steve or nothing. I said, I'm going to San Juan so I can connect. Just growing up as a kid, I knew I was a Jackson, and I knew my grandfather was old. He was born in 1885, but we didn't know any of his family. And there's a lot of black culture that never know both sides, right? I knew all my mom's side. I knew they were from Texas, migrated to Colorado, then California, but my dad's side, we didn't know anything. And I was always interested because my grandpa was so old. He had my dad when he was almost 50. So, you know, it was interesting just to see him farming in California. He had horses and things like that. So, I've always had interest to find out about my dad's side. So, that's why I went to San Juan, Texas. This is what I saw when we got there. We have a historic cemetery, and it's located in San Juan, Texas, and in 2005, the Historic Texas Museum put these markers up because Eli was my third great-grandfather's son, and they had all these acres. It was 5,500 acres, wow. And they decided to do a cemetery, church, and farming, et cetera, et cetera. I can read this if you want to hear it. It's Eli Jackson Cemetery. In 1857, Nathaniel Jackson, my third great-grandfather, came from Alabama and established a ranch in this area, San Juan. A former slave owner, because he was born in 1798, a former slave owner, Jackson, who was white, came with his wife Matilda Hicks, she was black, and their children, and freed slaves on this 5,500 acre ranch. Jackson raised livestock and grew vegetables, cotton, and sugarcane. He also established a chapel that served family and friends. Nathaniel Jackson and Matilda Hicks were known for their generosity and hospitality and helped many in need of lodging and other resources. Upon Jackson's death in 1865, his heirs continued the family tradition of hospitality. Eli Jackson served as county official, as did his son Nathaniel. His daughter Adela operated the ranch and cared for the cemetery until her death in 1992. Today, Eli Jackson Cemetery represents the early area of ranching communities. The burial ground is a tie to the Jackson family and their friends and neighbors from the past who share this as a final resting place. And this is what that plaque says. Okay. When I was working for the city of Austin, I was a member of the African American Heritage Committee for about 10 years. And in Texas, we do Juneteenth. It's a big event. So I would always, I guess I got that generosity and stuff from my third great grandfather and Matilda, because I always helped with the events, help put on the events. And I helped with the 30th anniversary here we just had too. But the generosity, I can see where my generosity and things are coming from. Nathaniel Jackson and Matilda Hicks also aided the slaves from Houston. There was a black underground railroad. And at our Black History program, this Hispanic man gave a presentation about a black underground railroad. And I never thought much of it. Have y'all ever heard of Black Underground Railroad in Texas? And you know, if you know your history, you have? Okay. If you know your history, you know a lot of slaves came from Louisiana for the auctions or whatever. So this is a slave route, like from the Houston, East Texas area, and then they came down this way, all the way down, and this is San Juan, Texas, where the Jackson Cemetery Church and Ranch area is. And then if you look down here, you see Matamoros and Tamaulipas. That's Mexico. See the Rio Grande River right there? That's Mexico. So you would have slaves that had the commerce to Mexico, bringing the cotton, you know, with their master or whoever on the wagon train. So a lot of times the slaves would come down this route. Oops. Sorry, y'all. They would come down that route, and they would kill the master, and then they would escape to Mexico through the Black Underground Railroad. And they would use the cotton gins or the cotton bales to float across the river, because the Rio Grande River is right across from the Mexico border. And that's how a lot of black men were freed. Black men and families were freed. And this is the 1860 census for Hidalgo, Texas, showing the Jackson family were freed men before Emancipation Proclamation. And if you look at all the pages forward and backwards, there's a lot of Spanish, mixed black races there. A lot of Spanish and black culture. And Steve, that's my husband and I, we went to visit the church, and the church was rebuilt in 1906 because it had a flood. And you know why it had a flood? Because it's right on the Rio Grande River. So they remodeled it, but it's still there. And they still have service there from time to time. Then, during my research, I found a picture of this old house from the 1900s. Dr. William Brewster married a black woman too. He was a white doctor, and he married a black woman. And they had a lot of children. And on my jet match, I'm related to, because of Matilda Hicks, she had 4 girls. So I'm related to the Brewsters because he married one of her daughters.
Wow. Nice.
And then this is inside the church. That's my cousin Sylvia Ramirez.
All right.
And she's a descendant of Matilda Hicks. And going down the...
Forgive me for interrupting your presentation. I just have a question because she's Caucasian.
No, she's Spanish and black.
Okay, Spanish and black.
Yes.
Did you ever have or experience any apprehension about that? Lack of a better word, but
Well,
any apprehension as far as what were related, and then looking at skin color, because I mean this world.
Once we took this trip
United States.
in December, she posted pictures of me and my family, my descendants, and all of these Hispanic culture they welcomed me because they knew they had black blood, but they didn't know, you know, they're all Spanish. So when they saw me, they were like, "Oh, we're getting close." Now we know, you know, proof that they're black and Hispanic. Yes, ma'am.
Really, you're a great grandchild of Matilda Hicks, right?
Yes, third great granddaughter. Yes.
So you're a cousin of those Brewsters.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And they're having a reunion in 2020 in Houston, so I'll be going to that. And that's inside the church. And Sylvia, I emailed Sylvia through Juan. They put me on the Facebook page, and Sylvia, she was so excited. She said, "Oh, when are you coming down? Any day you wanna come down, I'll meet you there. It was like a 5-hour drive from Austin. But she had open arms to meet me. You know, she was really excited, and I felt good. This is inside the church. That's, an old piano. The only thing that's original are the pews. And then there's the markers. When you, if you can see on this, slide how far back it is, it's all flat.
Wow.
And then that's Alvin, there's a cross at the cemetery.
That's a nice girl.
Yes.
Made out of blue wood.
And then the 7th generation, and that's, my brother, Sam, my great-grandfather was Sam, my grandfather was Sam, my dad was Sam, my brother Sam, and Sam. So the Sam,
It's just going on down the line.
That's the youngest Jackson right here. Anthony.
He used to change.
And then, Lord and behold, Trump's border wall was trying to go right through the cemetery. Here's an article right here. Talks about U.S. says border wall will avoid historic cemetery. So all of my Hispanic cousins fought it. They went to D.C. to fight, and they had lawyers. And
When was this?
recently, I think they
2 months ago.
December
Yeah.
was the last meeting, and they stated that they won't go through the cemetery because they're exempt by law.
Well, that was good.
I wonder if that was in the news, because one of the news
Yeah.
stations covered, that and, spoke to the lady.
And I have a video I want to show, and then that will conclude my presentation. When I heard that on the news, I knew I was connected to that area, and I felt some kind of way, you know, up here. But when I got there, I felt a sigh of relief. Oh, I think it came up right there. I felt relieved because I got to connect. Yeah, just, and then, and this is a video from University of Texas, the Rio Grande Valley. There's a professor working on the Black Underground Railroad because it needs to be told more. So she's trying to gather all the information she can, but you know it was a secret railroad, so there's not a lot of information. So I want to share this with you all, and then that concludes my presentation. Thanks for your time.